Welcome everyone to today's live stream. I finally got this Voodoo 2 from eBay. I said it already multiple times, I was looking for one, but I'm not endorsing this super high vintage prices. It arrived yesterday and of course I couldn't resist and plugged it in last night, but unfortunately it didn't work. I, by the way, got this for €60, which is the lowest price in 6 disconnected. Are we even? Why is the chat disconnected? 0 drop frames, whatever. Let's hope this recovers. And yeah, so I was watching there for 6 months. Maybe in retrospect this was not the best time, best spend for just maybe €20 saved, but whatever. And the reason that I always say be careful with this vintage stuff. I mean, first of all, sometimes this doesn't work, obviously, and then overpriced and such. And I couldn't get it to work last night. I was already slightly getting frustrated here last night, sitting here nearly until midnight. Thanks God I have not live streamed this. Not amazing experience. Let me show you. Also, as a quick update here, of course, I know in the meantime, back in the day, we didn't know that people called this deaccelerators. Actually, not this, the S3 Verge, of course, here that I purchased. Here is probably my first VGA card or accelerator, and I still think this was the right choice. Not only did I had not more money. This S3 Verge, this of course being the one I sourced recently, my original one from all the vintage stuff we had in the basement, my original S3 Verge. What was the name? Not DX, whatever, disappeared. I have no idea where it went. Maybe my father installed it at some uncle, aunt, neighbor, something, doesn't matter. I sourced this again from eBay. The DX version is slightly faster, and even this is not the most amazing. However, in retrospect, I still think this was the right choice because it had higher resolutions for regular desktop use, like 1024. I think back in the day, eventually I had a cheap Vobis or something, German retailer branded display. I was probably even running 1280 by 1024 or something, and this was simply not possible with the Voodoo. The Voodoo only had 640 by 480 or 800 by 600 resolution, and certainly was designed for 3D. Also, the Voodoo card you see here, also fun fact, some people on eBay are completely clueless and sell this as dual head. This is of course not dual head, this is pass-through. So for the Voodoo, of course, all of you once more into this now, the Voodoo needs a pass-through cable. So, and this is also the discount, the cheaper version of Voodoo I got there. It doesn't have the pass-through cable. Normally you would have the pass-through cable here from your main VGA card to your 3D accelerator. And this I also didn't like back in the day, because even for me, 16-year-old, it was clear that this doesn't make the signal any better. So, and you also had to have the additional card. So all, in my opinion, this was probably the best choice for me. Again, didn't really have much more money anyway. Higher resolution for all the 2D stuff, also playing 2D games like StarCraft or whatever, and doing all the Windows and the Linux work. And only now with retro vintage stuff I learned that people nowadays call this deaccelerator, and everyone is fan of a Voodoo card. Also fun fact, I think I did not know anyone in our friend, neighbor, village and someone. I probably did not know anyone with a Voodoo card, and I probably also did not know anyone with an Apple Macintosh, just for that fun little data points. Welcome everyone in the audience, by the way. And so let's show you first of all, why did I get this card? I mentioned this already. I want to do more of this low level programming. So next I will write the same, what I have already done, the spare metal low level 3D acceleration code that I've written for the S3 Verge. I will also write for the Voodoo. In fact, I already started. And now I will show you what happens when we power on Windows here on this. Let me check, have I plugged in everything? That should be plugged in probably, because I left this here more or less like this last night, and then starting it with our trusty screwdriver pin shortening message that sometimes doesn't work because this is our very sensitive IDT Windshield board. Sometimes it's not happy with the power supply. Like today, of course, why should it work for YouTube? Maybe I should have started this before I did the live stream. Oh, come on. No, it comes up. But this is not related to the screwdriver method. This is just the board and the power supply and whatever. Let's hope it comes up on the first try. As the recurring visitors here, viewers know that this board is a little bit... Oh, wait a second, I have it in the wrong. I have it in the Voodoo. That is, of course, without pass-through cable, not the right thing. Let's plug it in here in the 2D card. And we have apparently VGA. This I already booted. Amazing. No, we missed the boot on camera because we are too stupid to plug the VGA cable into the right VGA port. And so I hope this same stuff happens like it happens last night. This is the drawback of live streaming. And so the thing is, my experience, I said this also already, actually 3D stuff with a Verge, S3 Verge back in the day made me switch to Linux, and this is exactly the experience I had here. When I start, so I downloaded a couple of demos also, by the way, Descent. I thought I can just run some DOS games, but apparently some of these DOS games require to run in Windows, and many of the DOS games, of course, do not just work with the Voodoo 2, only with the Voodoo and fun stuff like this. Have anything else with P3? I don't do P3 Linux each and every day, but eventually we will also continue with that one. I also want to educate here, by the way, all the P3 fans can also just boot T2 and send in some patches. That would motivate me very much, but we will also continue with this. But this is also educating people how to write drivers, that I'm not the only one who needs to write 3D drivers for esoteric stuff like the P3. So a couple of demos, and none of this works. This is really set. I only show you to this shortly here to, first of all, I could, by the way, so many of these demos, one was this nature, was it this one? And then here is also 3DFX and maybe OK. Yeah, this one doesn't find glide init something. Expect Voodoo graphics non-detected, whatever. However, it is here in the, can also zoom in there. I could also capture this, but I'm not running the old Linux for the additional VGA capture thing there. Here in the hardware device manager thing, you will see that the driver is installed here for the Voodoo accelerator here. That should allegedly be working, but the device is working properly. So that is just the amazing Windows experience and why I turned to Linux around 1996 or so, 1997. And yeah, it should be there. Then the next thing, so basically nothing works. I only show you also this, that of course this experience can be slightly frustrating if you spend all your hard-earned bucks on eBay and then this stuff doesn't work. So basically no, but I will tell you more interesting stuff in a minute before you unsubscribe, before you leave the stream. So I have here some other demos. So for example, Diamond, I think. And this one, first of all, it didn't come with this DOS 4G extender thing, but anyway. And then, because I'm a cheapskate, I downloaded here some open source replacement thing here for this. Not sure why this one will crash. Not sure if it's because of this open source DOS 4G thing or whatever. But yeah, this is also, but this is not the only thing that doesn't work. The other demo here also didn't work. The other demo was here some, and we will be, but yes, the other demo was this one. This one just hangs, to be continued demo here from someone. Yeah, this doesn't do anything. No idea what's up with this one. And yeah, then the question is, of course, if this is the experience with this vintage stuff, because why do I show you this? I could, of course, make a video showing you the distilled stuff, like reinstalling everything, and only show you the working stuff like other vintage retro channels. But to show you here what is the experience really when you spend here some €100, or if you need even more, if you need the logic board, the processor, memory and the Voodoo card and stuff, maybe you even spend more than $200. In my opinion, yeah, you need to think about if that is what you really want. And so the next thing, and by the way, this is just why I left Windows, right? I was trying to do 3D programming with the S3 Verge, and everything I tried crashed. The documentation was shabby back in the day. Last but not least, even so, this is the last reference driver that I installed, and you see it here in this display preferences, and then all the people who nowadays tell me no, Windows is fine, Windows 10. I will never go back to Windows, not for privacy, and this is just, yes, Windows became a little bit better, but the update stuff is still ridiculous. If I click here, this will crash. What kind of driver are this? By the way, this is a completely vanilla installation. I have not done much here with this test installation. I just installed Windows and nothing really works. And if I click on this, at least the last time, yeah, this fatal exception occurred. So thank you, Bill Gates, for this amazing operating system. And then I already thought, shit, I have a defect card. Shut down here, by the way. Shut down this bloody stuff from the Microsoft garage there. And yeah, don't trust operating systems that are written by some noobs in some garage. And allegedly anyway, I heard it wasn't a garage anyway to start with. And then I already thought, damn, I have a defect card. I spent €60 and now this bloody thing doesn't even work. Then I turned, as much as I'm also not satisfied with Linux and I probably have to continue my microkernel, I next turned to Linux here with my trusty transmitter thin client, because only on this channel we combine the most esoteric hardware you can combine, of course. And to evaluate if I need to complain to this, the problem is, of course, with laws, that this was a sale from a private person, and then I can't really complain that it doesn't work. Although he wrote there it was working. And this is, of course, also the next vintage stuff drawback on eBay. You buy something and it doesn't work. I need this power cable because we are so cheapskate that we don't even have a second power cable, except, okay, we actually have more, but nicely sorted in card boxes. So our trusty transmitter thin client, we also need keyboard, or we also need the Voodoo card. Wait a second, plug this out for a second. And also, by the way, I can't even be sure if it is because of the IDT Win chip, whatever the Windows doesn't like there. So really many different things. Of course, only do this properly grounded, which I of course have done. Of course, this card is slightly long for the thin client, but that doesn't really matter. Let's plug back the power in and let's get the keyboard out of here. And somewhere here we have our keyboard dongle, because even back in the day, AT2PS2. And even with Linux, I right now cannot show you the most amazing 3D demo. That will come for another day. But I will tell you in a moment, I will tell you a couple of details in the specifications that in the meantime I've already studied for a couple of days here. And yeah, just a quick test from all the other regressions and stuff that doesn't work on Linux. At least that one worked a little bit. This, of course, is a completely old test installation of T2 that we already used in another video. And just for a quick test to evaluate if this card even has a chance to work, or if I got here some defect on arrival. Let's see, I recall some issues with old CPUs and Voodoo stuff. No, the Win chip is not a glorified 486. It has even MMX and 3D now. It is, but it has a RISC core, which is actually pretty neat. But I would like to say thank you for all the work you do have done. It's an amazing job in teaching us how to do Linux encoding and those get things work. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this comment. And of course, this piece 3 is just here around the corner. Just that I can't build. I have here some ambitious goals. I will probably not hit the 10,000 subscriber goal until the end of the year that was initially. But by the way, if you want to help me, you can spread, share and like and shameless self-promote on Reddit and whatnot. I don't have Ethernet cable in there. We need to wait some 25 seconds more or something until this DHCP out timeouts here. And yeah, always welcome to share, like, and subscribe, because so my goal this year was actually 10,000 subscribers, which I have the feeling we might not achieve. This is why we need to live stream here every day. And so next is here not only PS3 of course, but next is finishing my example. First I only wanted to try if this card works. I obviously makes no sense to spend here whole weekend writing code for a card that is dead. And this is why last night I seriously spent here from 9:30 to midnight with this bloody Windows. So then here our amazing Linux. And now to test this is of course again where Linux is a little bit stupid. If you now, I even Googled today some 15 minutes and read the source code and trial and error. What I couldn't get to work so this installation is slightly irritated. It's some T2 testing where some UDEF is irritated because, you know, systemd and UDEF. So long story short, this is right now not auto-loading modules. This is actually helping us. If it would auto-load modules, it would already come here with a ATI frame buffer, because this has an ATI Radeon on board there next to the transmitter Fission. So this actually helps us. But if I run now UDEF ADM trigger for auto-loading all the modules, we would get a frame buffer on the ATI card, which is not what we want. So this is why we now manually probe. And so if we run UDEF ADM trigger for module auto-loading, then we get two frame buffers. Frame buffer 0 will be the onboard Radeon 750 or what this was, and frame buffer 1 will be the 3DFX. And then we have no output unless we also start an X server and so on, yada yada yada. And one workaround, so I did not find how to dynamically rebind the frame buffer console thing to the first frame buffer, to frame buffer 1. If you know, maybe this is not even possible. If you know how to do this, leave a comment in below. In 15 minutes with my Linux foo, I couldn't figure that out. So a quick workaround for this is simply not do the auto loading of the modules and simply manually mod probe SST frame buffer, which is a 3DFX here, the SST frame buffer thing, and which, by the way, did nothing. Let's hope we didn't destroy here something. What the heck? SST frame buffer should work, but doesn't. Did I mistype here? SSTFB. The fun only live on YouTube. SSTFB. What have I done? Mob to probe SSTFB. Why is this? Don't tell me the card is not fully in or some other. It worked some moment ago though. Not that we have destroyed our precious multimedia controller. It is here though. What the heck is going on now? Why would this not work? Fun stuff live on YouTube. Don't tell me we have electroshocked this card here live on YouTube. The PCI extender is fully in though. So much to that experience. Anyway, let's try it once more and hope this works. So much to your precious expensive stuff here that you plug in and out. It is fully in though. That is of course not good. Maybe we find a Ethernet cable to avoid this, or we... It's of course slight fail, always only live on YouTube. Okay, whatever I can tell you in the meantime. Voodoo details. Reading the spec here, I found here some interesting stuff. Also probably why the Voodoo card is faster than the S3 Verge. First of all, this is actually the spec for the first. The Voodoo 2 is of course mostly a faster version of the Voodoo 1. And surprisingly, they added already 2D acceleration. For what, I don't know. I guess probably game developers complain that they want to blit 2D sprites on top or additionally to 3D triangles. So here's split data. So by the way, maybe we find this also in the overview. And also another thing is that it's funny. So I said already that this can only do a handful of resolutions, which are not many. It's still getting warm though, because actually it is getting quite warm when it's running. And here is the spec stuff. So 2D is only added to the Voodoo 2, but this is of course not a full 2D for a whole windowing system. This is only 2D bit BLT. For example, the Voodoo 2 is still lacking the hardware cursor that normal 2D cards have. Actually, should also show it like this. So added to the Voodoo 2 2D features except hardware cursor, which is real oversight, only 2D blitting, solid fills and stuff. In my opinion, it would of course have been much more amazing if they would have added a hardware cursor also. This is of course not good. That no, this doesn't work. Which kernel is this even? Oh, wait a second. Did I boot a slightly newer kernel? No, I didn't. Damn, this is really... This is really unfortunate. Anyway, it was working before I live streamed. Then I need to do more testing on this. This is of course, I hope all this YouTube live streaming didn't destroy it now. And then I said this already, this card is extremely similar to the 3D Verge otherwise. It is similar programmable here with registers to fill in the 3D coordinates. And one reason that maybe this card is so much faster here are the registers. So the programming will be exactly the same as in my 3D Verge programming example with filling all the details here for the vertexes here in these registers, and the card will blitz this here just exactly like the 3D Verge. One thing that is already better in this card is that theoretically it can do the Voodoo 2 at least. The Voodoo 2 added complete triangle setup here with registers here in the higher range of, where would this be? Text address somewhere. Triangle setup, here is triangle setup. These are these registers. I think this was new in Voodoo 2. And what this is doing is in the 3D Verge I showed you that you had to manually compute all the clipping coordinates and pre-compute all the deltas. And this of course also already takes quite some CPU cycles for each vertex to texture. And here with this card we could actually, by the way, check if this indeed was in the first or not. I think not. Let's just quickly scroll that to the register mapping. And that would be here, init. I think this is new in the Voodoo 2. And so of course then low level bare metal direct hardware wise, if you use these features, obviously it only works on the Voodoo 2, or otherwise this is what driver abstraction is for, OpenGL and Direct 3D, that you don't have to deal with this register level changes. So this is of course a very nice thing added to the Voodoo 2 that is of course way faster, especially if you do clipping. For the S3 Verge, for example, you cannot even do the world transform and directly use these values, because the S3 Verge, all the drawing needs to be on screen, so you cannot start with a negative X value. If your triangle starts here minus 20 pixels off the screen, then this needs to be clipped before feeding these coordinates. And I think this probably can usually lead to 2 vertexes per 3D triangle after clipping, and is of course making everything slower and more cumbersome for the developer. In general, in my opinion, this is a very simple setup here. As I said, extremely similar to the Verge, and I wish modern cards were more similar to this, that people could write amazing demos or in less than a month a driver for an operating system like BOS or something, instead of spending a year or two or something. And yeah, this is a programming extremely similar to the Verge, and somewhere here was written the reason that this is probably faster is that it has multiple memory buses, the Voodoo, compared to the S3 Verge. The S3 Verge has one memory bus, and I think this different chips, here's the FBI, the frame buffer, interface, FBI, and text or something, texture mapping engine, and those have here direct memory. So this is probably one reason why this Voodoo card has at least 2 times the memory bandwidth, direct frame buffer and texture memory, so that it has probably at least like 2 times the memory bandwidth than the Voodoo card. And of course a texture mapping engine can constantly do the texture memory look up there in texture memory, instead of having to wait for the main frame buffer CRT driver there for loading the pixel data to output this to the RAM DAC, to the display. And there were some other tricks in there. Another very interesting thing is that I think you cannot read the same data back from the frame buffer. So you have here some frame buffer format, so you can read this data like on a VGA card, like a linear frame buffer, but not in the same format that you write into it. So for example, you can write regular old-fashioned 8-bit or whatever pixel format. You can configure this here with some frame buffer setup register. And as far as I've read, I've not yet tried this, but it looks here to me that you cannot read the same data back. For example, if you write here in 8-bit or 32-bit mode, you can always only read it back as 16-bit data or something. So it is, as far as I've seen from the specification, always dithering and converting the data to 16-bit internally, and you can only read this back, and you can only configure if you read this back byte swapped for big Indian systems and such, and not in any other way here. Also note, I just scrolled over this diagrams here, also extremely similar. Of course, these are just exactly the same conceptual diagrams of the vertex data, just like in our S3 Verge example. And yeah, also the commands, triangle command, this works exactly the same. This is why I'm surprised the performance is so different, and people calling the S3 Verge a deaccelerator, and this one, everyone is nowadays amazed. But again, this is probably mostly due to higher memory bandwidth there for the texture engine, and otherwise you see the concept is exactly the same. You fill the register with your vertex data and then you issue the triangle command. One really nice thing also is that this supports floating point values, so all the registers are duplicated. You can also go back to that. So you can directly fill this apparently with floating point data here. You have here vertex A. These are the vertex coordinates A, B and C for X, Y and such, and the RGB start values and delta values. This is exactly 100% identical to the Verge. And the only difference is that it also has all the registers here again for vertex floating point values. So this might theoretically, for some professional applications, make this conversion easier, that the 3D software driver does not need to convert the data from the CAD application or the game data from floating point to fixed point integer. And again, the Voodoo 2, of course, having here the triangle setup stuff. And yeah, then of course you need also to program here the mode. And one fun stuff is that it has here only 2 modes internally, 800 by 600 and 640 by, these are here the modes. And there you see the limitation. I mentioned theoretically the S3 Verge, as much as the deaccelerator, the S3 Verge is theoretically, you can run higher resolutions. For example, if you don't need 30 frames per second for a game, but you can live with, let's say, 12 frames per second for some wireframe data of a CAD application, of some computer-aided design. The Verge can do this. The Voodoo cannot do this because these are the only resolutions even the Voodoo 2 can drive. And I think you can program slightly different resolutions, but only smaller resolutions, I think. So it is internally always running at either of these resolutions, and you can probably program a smaller window to be outputted to the RAM DAC based on this larger frame buffer. And this is probably how much we go in this live stream, not to keep it too fast. I'm slightly irritated that this card is not coming up. We can, I'm not sure if but I think this is Linux kernel I've run. For some reason it is not having here keyboard on the boot screen with PS2, only with USB for whatever strange reason that is here on the thin client. We can, for a last check, this is of course always for the live stream. Something goes wrong, but somehow when I just sit here I usually never destroy something, and then for some live stream quickly swapping this over without an ESD wristband or something, then some nonsense happens. I think I've run this kernel, but we can edit this to 4. I have here something newer. So I think 4.17 did not boot for some on this transmitter for some strange reason of Intel vulnerability mitigations or something. There's some regression. So I think 16 was probably the last kernel that booted here. Let's see what happens with this, but I'm pretty sure I just booted the default kernel there for this to work. This of course would be really unfortunate that after all this Windows fiddling there in the night, I thought it's working and then just on the live stream it stopped working. But let's see if it gets its act together there. I think it plugs in there just nicely. Nothing is shorting there. And yeah, leave me in the comments what you think. Did you had what card did you had? Did you had so much money to have already a Voodoo card back in the day? Did you enjoy this? To be truth be told, I did not run much 3D games on the Verge, I guess. I anyway had the slightly slower one. This is a 3D Verge DX, whatever the name of the first Verge was. And the DX, of course, is slightly faster. Truth be told, I have not run many games. Maybe I even was disappointed. It came probably with a demo of Terminal Velocity. Maybe I even tried Descent or something. Not sure what I tried back in the day. But I'm not sure if it was because I was so much programming that I simply didn't have time for gaming, or that I was so disappointed from the performance that I never really used it except for a 2D frame buffer there. But what is now? It's of course funny here with the. So let's see if this works. BIOS bug, what the heck? Ah, by the way, this could work because, so now the terminal froze already. No, wait a second, it really froze. But let's see if we have at least this. Of course, funny each time you try something. So this kernel also, so much to speaking about regressions, only live on YouTube. How warm is this? I mean, the IC still got warmish. Should not be completely dead, whatever is up with this one here. Actually, no, we have, okay, so it's still working, whatever is up with this. Just that, so this is a Voodoo now, whatever the stripes are there. The stripes were not present, but so this, so much speaking about regressions, I have no idea. So at least it's still doing something, except by the way, this looks, of course, okay. This could be, I said already, you cannot write any data. For example, you can not configure the frame buffer. It's 16-bit internally always, I think, or something, or 24 or whatever. You cannot read and write each pixel format. So this could actually be a regression in pixel format there. So at least Voodoo is not dead yet from our random live streaming here. And yeah, so that is that. Actually, this is scrolling. But by the way, this is what I meant with scrolling performance. The scrolling is really not implemented in the Linux kernel in the most high performance way. And this is what I meant with my vintage videos, where I talked about making experience with writing my own low-level bare metal scrolling there. This is what always irritates me also on the PS3 and whatnot, this scrolling performance. I think it's even either software copying, software writing, always splitting this data here, unless it is optimized to use bitBLT on the graphic card. bitBLT, of course, being raster block transfer. And someone in the audience, Mike Hahn, he still has Voodoo 3, 3000 and Reaver TNT somewhere. Yeah, I also have a Reaver TNT, which by the way was not mine. I think this is of course a nice thing if you just keep this shit or stuff. The Reaver TNT was my brother's, I'm pretty sure. And even, for example, I have in another vintage video, I basically took last year for the YouTube video, I took all the vintage stuff out of my parents' basement in Hanover when I was there, as we are here located in Berlin. And thankfully we didn't have thrown it away or sold it on eBay. So this is my original IDT Winchip board and my original Sound Blaster even here from back in the day. I'm really thankful that I did not have to buy this here again on eBay. That would be a little bit expensive nowadays. And this is why, in my opinion, just don't throw the stuff away. Or if you don't need it, also don't give it to recycling. Either give it away to friends and family or sell it on eBay. It's really unfortunate to destroy this stuff for scrap metal, and otherwise just keep the stuff. In my opinion, it's always nice, even if you don't have so much space, put it in some card box somewhere on some shelf, wherever. So yeah, so Voodoo 2 frame buffer device at something there. And yeah, at least this works, whatever is with the kernel. But there you see, I don't make this kernel regressions up, by the way. Now, first it had the stripes, now it didn't have the stripes, so much to whatever was with the bitBLT there. So you probably also have not seen a Linux frame buffer console on a Voodoo card that often, I guess. Probably so all here live on a Transmeta Efficient thin client, no less. Only on our channel live on YouTube. Whatever is up with this Windows stuff, but this is just mirrors my experience why I left Windows back in the day. This Windows driver stuff and non-protected mode, not address space isolated nonsense there of Windows 95. And we could for last theoretically, but anyway, so this works. Probably, basically, I don't really need to play here more with this stuff. And by the way, you have seen, so this is how it looks when you have not a pass-through cable, of course. By the way, fun fact, you can use this as dual head solution. Of course, not like some eBayers advertise this, because some eBayers advertise this as dual head. This is of course not true, they are just plain stupid. As I said, this is pass-through from the 2D card, and of course you can use this independently. As I don't have this pass-through cable, I could theoretically solder one, cut this VGA cable, solder here a female connector onto this, but I will probably not bother with this at all. With this pass-through stuff, I don't like degraded signal quality anyway. I will just use this as dual head. Dual head, of course, with a primary VGA card there, so I have a monitor on both of them and they can both independently output some signal. And this is also how you could use this to debug your operating system drivers, having some debug output on the other head there. And I'm pretty sure you will find on some games, you will probably find debug output for the drivers or so, because it is just too convenient to plug in a second monitor here and have debug printouts of whatever game logic or 3D engine logic you want to do there. This is of course a very neat thing there, at least from this respect. Otherwise, yeah, was an amazing live stream. At least this card still works. Here you have the 3D in this, by the way, whatever is going on with that, because on the other Linux kernel that we booted a second ago, we didn't had LSPCI output here with Voodoo 2, whatever was irritated on the PCI bus there. But next will then be, of course, programming this. I started this already. Now that I have the card, I can test this on real hardware, and then I hope I have very quickly, in just a couple of hours or an afternoon here, this demo running on the Voodoo card. And again, this is of course the unluck with this Windows stuff there. I probably, in the 3 hours that I last night spent fighting with this Windows installation, I could probably have already finished this demo here. So much to the amazing Windows experience. And maybe this is of course really sad in my opinion. I wish we would have been so much further ahead in terms of computing setup with amazing operating systems, not only BOS but Plan 9 and other fun stuff, or Smalltalk operating systems, because in 1995, even when I was 16, I did not like this operating system experience, and the way the Linux kernel still crashes or Windows crashes, in my opinion, it would be so much more convenient if you could directly debug this, if the whole setup with tools and debuggers in kind of, you could introspect there the state of the applications and drivers, and it would be more isolated. I mean, of course, Windows 95 was a complete piece of shit, obviously, but this is why I'm now looking more forward to microkernels with more manageability, driver auto starting, and other concepts like this, like Minix already implemented, driver recovery, or even maybe Windows 10 can even recover the graphic driver when the NVIDIA driver crashed and stuff like this. And unfortunately, we are not there in terms of Linux. The only thing you can do is restart your X server or something. And I really wish we would be further. Somehow, in my opinion, there is quite a decade or two missed in operating system research and development to develop more advanced solutions. Now I can clean up here the whole mess I made here last night, sort all the stuff in the shelves, probably vacuum also the floor because somehow it is really dusty here in the meantime. And then not only do some more main work now, but then later tonight or tomorrow finish my demo there. I hope you enjoy this. And as always, leave in the comments what you like and dislike. What is your experience? What are your thoughts? And I hope to see you soon for the next videos to come. And don't forget to share, like, subscribe and recommend to other people. And I guess that's it for today. And yeah, I have other vintage boards, but I'm also not too keen to plug in this Windows with all these drivers, and after plugging this in a couple of mainboards, so Windows installation regresses even more, and then eventually this is completely defect. I will probably also need to start to make a collection of operating system images, Windows, Linux, vintage Linux and BOS and whatnot, just to have different things to try. And yeah, that is here our amazing Windows experience and initial thoughts and tinkering and testing with the Voodoo card. I hope you liked this overview, and again my shout out to specifications. Not sure if back in the day you could get the specifications, maybe not, but at least now you find them on the internet, which I'm very thankful for. And also to NVIDIA, if you want me and other more pro users buy your cards, publish the specifications, because I vote with my wallet and I will not buy any stuff that I can't get the specifications for. Of course, sometimes we cannot avoid this, like some 5-year-old MacBooks, but that is why we are turning to Lenovo ThinkPads anyway. And yeah, as usual, looking forward to read your comments, and I hope to see you soon.